because of the intimacy of money.
Right? I mean, you know a lot more about some of these people than, close family members.
That's true. And we're sworn to secrecy.
You're listening to Planning for the Future with our guest, John Jenkins. To get a free copy of John's book, call 800-275-6626.
There's one thing that I think people need to know is everybody can do something, right? Everybody's always strapped for cash. That happens. There's too much week at the end of the money, all of that. But there's always something you can do to get started. And as you start, you just make it grow from there. I mean, how do you explain to somebody who really doesn't have a lot what they can do to get started?
I'm glad you asked that question because for many years now, I have been sharing what I call the 4 principles to follow to reach independence, financial independence. And I particularly share these with young people. My children I've shared it with, et cetera. Are they all doing it? I don't really know because, again, I don't even know my adult children's finances. Maybe that says one thing or another, but point is, here are the things that I've told people. And if they will do these, they will reach that point where they're free from worry about money. So number one is you have to pay yourself first. In other words, saving something has to be just as important as the gas and electric bill. Because if you take the attitude, I'll save after I've paid all the bills, you will never save because there's always another bill arrives in the mail. So even if it's just $25 a month to get started, particularly for a young person, start saving $25 a month. Second principle is every time you get a raise, not every other, not every third, every time you get a raise, take at least 10% of the raise before you ever see it in your take-home pay. Take home 90% of it, after taxes, of course. But take 10% and increase your allocation to savings, retirement, a down payment account for a house or for the next car or the vacation or long-term care insurance or whatever it is. But increase your allocation by at least 10% every time you get a raise. And if you will do that, pretty soon you'll find, gee, I started out saving $25 a month, and I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years now, and I'm saving $500 a month. I never thought I could save $500 a month. The other thing is if I asked them day one to save $500 a month, they would have gotten up and walked out the door. But they've gotten there through that discipline of every time you get a raise, do this. The third principle is what I call unanticipated money. So every time I get a check in the mail, a refund from something, I bought something on Amazon and said, you know what, I really don't want or need this. I send it back and I get a $30 check in the mail. If I hand you $30, you could not tell me at the end of the month where that $30 went. You put it back in your checking account, where'd it go? It's like sand through your fingers, water through your fingers. So the rule that I followed for years and years is any amount that comes in unanticipated of less than $100, I turn over, endorse, and mail to my savings, my money market fund. I tracked this 1 year. It's been a few years, but I tracked this. And in 1 year, my wife and I deposited $997 of unfound or unanticipated money that came back from this, that, or the other. You overpaid your insurance. Whoops, we double paid that bill, and they send you back the $52. Turn it over if it's less than $100 and save it. So what can you do with $997? Well, even now, I can take my wife from San Diego up to Santa Barbara for a very nice weekend on almost $1,000. We could have a nice little getaway vacation for 2-3 days. We could say, hey, there's another $1,000 I can put in my next car down payment account or in my insurance account, or I can now buy some insurance on something or someone that I need. Any number of reasons, as you might imagine. And then the last principle, which sounds facetious, and I do not mean it that way at all, is marry the payment. And people look at me with, a confused look and say, what do you mean by marry the payment? So I'll give you a real-world example. My wife and I adopted 2 boys when they were 1 and 3 years old, brothers. And when the first of them went to preschool, which was about a year and a half later, back then it was $350 a month. I know it's a lot more expensive today. But we were now on one income. She was a teacher. She stayed home with the boys. And we suddenly had a $350 monthly expense we didn't have before. Well, we figured out how to make it work. We adjusted the budget and so on and so forth. We made it work. Then, because the younger brother was only 21 months younger, we had a second child in preschool. So two of them, $700 a month. And that was tough to do, but we figured out, shaved here and there, and figured out how to make it work. Pretty soon, the older one went to kindergarten, and we didn't have that bill anymore. And she looked at me and said, hey, we get $350 a month back now. And I looked at her and just shook my head no. And she knew better. She asked me, did we marry that payment? And I went, yep, I just redirected it into his college account. So now I was saving $350 a month for his college. It was already in the budget. We had already adjusted our lifestyle. It was already there. So rather than put it back and expand your lifestyle, put it to the next financial objective. Again, I've mentioned several of them.
That's brilliant.
And so if you will do those four things, do them long enough, you will be free from worry about money. But what is the one common denominator all of them require? Every one of them requires one common denominator: discipline.
That's the hardest part.
That's the hardest part. And it's the one thing not taught in our schools, along with financial principles are not taught in our schools. But I tell people, you have money habits. You learned them somewhere. Either you were blessed to have parents who had good money habits and you're modeling those, or you were unfortunate to have parents who did not have good money habits and you're very likely to be modeling those. We do see some exceptions to that where it was so bad that the child has realized, I'm not going to do it that way, and so they do the opposite. We've had that kind of thing too. And we've had the other opposite where it was so good, well, I never have to worry about it.
Right.
Right? And then the next thing you know, 15 years has gone by and they look and they say, I haven't saved anything for retirement and I don't have a cash reserve account. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, but I drive a nice car, live in a nice house, et cetera.
Just listening to you talk about those four pillars, like the marrying of the bill is amazing. I mean, that's such a great idea. It's because you don't miss it.
No.
If you just keep doing it,
it's already there.
You're not missing it. Like at one point, I had 3 kids in daycare, and it cost me over $12,000 a year in daycare. So if I would have taken all that and gone through and just put that into something else, and now my kids are all older. I've got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 15-year-old. So there would be a lot in their college accounts.
That's right.
A lot more in their college accounts than what is there if I would have just done that. That's a great idea.
It's just a discipline idea, and it's very simple, as you just heard. All too few people do it. That, to me, is just a lack of awareness in our culture about finances and the importance of them. And I'm still astounded, literally, even after all these years, when I see people who have either very poor or non-existent money habits at all. They just are burying their heads in the sand.
When you find somebody like that who is, just ostriching and burying their head in the sand like that, and they come into you and things are just a mess, it doesn't mean there's no hope, right?
No, it doesn't mean there's no hope. But I ask for a level of commitment that I don't normally ask when I see people who are very disciplined and have accumulated some assets, which tells you they are disciplined. So when I see people who have very little in the way of resources, let's say they're already in their 40s or 50s, and they don't have much saved, I already know they've been spending every dime that comes in. So the extra level of commitment I ask them is that, look, we're willing to do this for you, and obviously you're going to pay us for our time, a planning fee or whatever else, and you've indicated you're willing to do that, to absorb that expense. But we're not interested in doing this unless you're going to follow the plan and develop some discipline in your finances, because I'll look them right in the eye and say, you already know where you're headed if you keep doing what you're doing. You don't need me to tell you. You've got nothing now. Keep doing what you're doing. Guess where you're headed.
Right.
Right? So you already know. Are you willing, and I'm going to make you put this in writing, to follow a plan, to save the money, to do what you need to do? Because if you will do that, we can help you. If you won't do that, no one can help you.
And again, like you said, it doesn't have to be $1 million a month.
No.
Just something.
Yeah.
Something that can help grow and move on.
Everybody's lifestyle is different. You can live on $40,000 a year, you can live on $4 million a year. Everybody's lifestyle is different. So, and those are just hypothetical numbers. There are people who live on less than $40,000 and do so just fine, and people who live on way more than $4 million and have no worries about money. And I've also met people who have 7-figure incomes and 8-figure debt.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're driving a Ferrari or a Bugatti.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So they have all the flashy toys and they're living the high life, but they're not thinking about the future. I always say, because I've seen it, I think in our culture, I know the millennials can't see retirement yet. It happens around age 45 or so, in my view. Somewhere right in there is when, you know what, I can see over the horizon a little bit now, and I can see that, you know, I'm not going to have this young laissez-faire attitude and ability all the time, so maybe I should start doing something. And it's about 45 when people go, I better get serious about retirement planning because I don't want to work till I'm 90.
Right. Right. I actually have some friends of my oldest son who are doing things like they're already working on stuff for their retirement. They're like, you know, one of my son's friends, he's like, I want to retire at 55.
Yeah.
He's like,
and
he puts
it's
away
achievable.
He puts away money all the time. Like he's like, you know, I have this money. You can go do this. No, that money's there for this. This is my spending money. This is my mad money. This is my money for the future.
Yeah, that's all discipline.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really, really awesome. I appreciate your time, John.
My pleasure.
It's been super informative. I loved the 4 pillars and everything. So
you'll remember it.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your website?
Website is asset-preservation.com.
Awesome. Well, again, very, very much a pleasure to talk to you. John Jenkins, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you for listening to Planning for the Future with our guest, John Jenkins. To get a free copy of John's book, call 800-275-6626.